So check this out. Astral projecting sister. In 2020, me and my family moved into the house that we live in today. It's a Victorian house and is fairly large, and for 6 months straight, we kept seeing my younger sister all over the house when she wasn't home. It started with my dad seeing her in her room with her legs dangling off her bed, but when he turned to ask her why she wasn't at work, she disappeared. Then, on 2 separate occasions, I saw my sister walk past my studio door and go downstairs when, again, she wasn't even home. 4 months into our move, my mom was washing dishes and my sister walked past her, and when my mom asked something, my sister even replied, and my mom watched her walk out into the garden, only to find out that she had been out all day with her friends. The weirdest experience, however, that we always talk about was when I was in my room and got a call from my parents to ask her what she wanted from the takeaway. So I come out to see her standing halfway up the stairs. I ask her what she wants from the takeaway, and she doesn't reply. So I ask again, and that's when she does reply. But behind me, from her bedroom. So I'm frozen, staring at this person looking up at me on the stairs, and I say, my sister's name, "Are you in your bedroom?" And she replies, "Yeah, why?" And I just slowly walk backwards into her bedroom while keeping an eye on the person on the stairs who's now slowly fading away. I close the door and my sister can see that I'm freaked out, and when we open the door again, nobody's there. It happened at twilight, so I like to think that it was just the fading sun, I don't know, maybe playing tricks on me or something. But honestly, I remember looking at them so clearly and seeing the detail on their face. I even remember how they stopped moving and stood still when I talked to them. The memory still makes me feel on edge when I pass that area. Nothing has happened for almost 4 years though, and it's the only odd experience that I've had with, paranormal stuff. Still, I yearn for some kind of explanation or to know that others might have experienced the same thing. The yellow ball. When I first saw this subreddit, I knew I had to share this story. I've thought of it pretty regularly since it happened and nearly have told everyone that I've met at some point. I can tell most dismiss the story completely, though I figured I can share here with insights, interpretations, and ideas. I'm open-minded, so any theory or even dismissal is fine by me. When I was 16, we were playing dodgeball in our school's mini gym. It's a pretty small gym for just badminton, really. On the opposite side, I see this freshman pick up a small yellow dodgeball, look right at me, wind up, and then throw it. The ball sailed about 10 to maybe 15 feet over my head, but in my direction. As I follow the ball in flight with my eyes, as it goes over my head, I turn to get the bounce back off the wall, but it never happens. I'm looking around, confused as shit. And in fact, I see no one had picked up a yellow ball, or one was hiding in some corner. Here's what makes me consider some glitch. I overhear, "Wow," from one of my classmates. I look at her, and she was like, "That ball just disappeared over your head." She looked to be in absolute shock, but kind of dismissed it a bit after. When she said that, I made it a mission to search every damn square inch of that gym, and nothing. At the end of class, when we put all the balls away, not one single yellow ball was there. I'm still trying to figure out how that happened. Lost time by getting up to use the bathroom. I recently binge watched a show, and it's not often that I get hooked on a series, but I was totally riveted, like I wanted to hear every word. I had to go to the bathroom really bad in the middle of an episode, so instead of pausing it, I just angled the laptop toward the bathroom while I used the toilet. I never took my eyes off it, and I was following along just fine. Then I flushed and got back into bed. And as I was lowering myself onto the bed, I realized I suddenly had no idea what was happening on screen. So I was pretty confused and thought I just spaced out for a second. I went to rewind the 10 seconds that I thought I lost, but I found that I had to go back way farther and eventually back to about the place I initially know with 1000% certainty at which I got up to pee. I know because I commented aloud as I stood up with some sarcastic quip to what the show had just said. So I rewound to that point and was stunned to discover none of what happened afterwards was familiar to me. Like I'd never been watching from the toilet, and also it had jumped like a full 10 minutes ahead. It was so f***ing weird. And like my brain was suddenly incapable of remembering what I'd watched from the toilet, because I knew that whatever it wasn't what I was seeing now. Also, the fact that it was like several scenes ahead and I had only peed for like maybe 30 seconds. So fucking unnerving. I don't drink or do drugs, I'm not insane, and no, it's not carbon monoxide. I have no explanation for this. On Sunday, I was cooking some meat under the broiler. I took the pan out to flip the meat over. I was flipping it with the grabber in my right hand, forgot for a second, and accidentally touched the sheet pan with the middle finger of my left hand. It hurt like Hades, and I shoved it under some cold water to try to make the pain go away. I looked at it afterwards and could already see the blister coming up on my finger. I put some Neosporin and a Band-Aid on it and pretty much forgot about it right away. The next morning, I was going to take a shower and went to take the Band-Aid off. That's when I noticed that I had a burn blister on my pointer finger. I thought, oh, that's strange. I guess I burned that one as well and just didn't notice. And when I took the Band-Aid off of my middle finger, there was no blister. That one was completely fine. Weird repetitive behavior at the vet. I was at the vet with my dog and my cat waiting in the lobby. There were two other people waiting with their pets. There was one woman who went up to retrieve her Labrador from the vet tech. She then proceeded to dump food in a dog bowl from a Tupperware container with no lid in sight. The dog just gobbled it up in seconds. I then went back to look at my phone and she did it again. I thought, that's strange. How did she refill her Tupperware? Her purse was not large at all, and she then proceeded to do it 2 more times. I still have no idea how she was refilling her Tupperware. There's no way that 4 different Tupperware containers fit in her small purse. Also, who brings that much kibble to the vet just to feed the dog right when you get them back? She then put the Tupperware back in her purse with no lid. I tried to make eye contact with the other guy sitting there to see if he was clocking this too. He just looked at me and smiled. It reminded me of the Twilight Zone or something because it was very much business as usual. It reminded me immediately of this subreddit. Man, I love the Twilight Zone, dude. I think my favorite episode was the first one that I ever watched. It's called 4 Characters in Search of an Exit. So if you feel like looking for the old Twilight Zone on whatever streaming service it's on now, watch that one for me. Appearing wall? This one's short but sweet. I, a 28-year-old female, have lived with my partner, also a 28-year-old female, for 4 months now. I helped her move in while she had work to do. So I saw this place empty. It's a pretty small 3-bedroom, a relatively open plan. You walk through the entry through a small hallway where 2 of the bedrooms and a large lounge area are located behind doors. At the end of the hallway, you have a kitchen to your right. The bench wraps around the wall to the right and comes out to create a divide to an open lounge and dining area, with floor-to-ceiling bay windows and sliding doors to allow the view and light in and to lead out to our deck. I've spent many hours on the deck admiring that same view and speaking to my partner as she cooks or just plots around the kitchen. Now, to the appearing wall. 2 days ago, I was sitting in the lounge/dining area and speaking to her in the kitchen. I noticed a quarter wall above the kitchen bench. It runs along the whole length of the kitchen, and I've never, not even once, have noticed it. I asked my partner, and she's assured me that it's always been there. I cannot unsee this wall. No matter which way I approach the kitchen or the dining/lounge area, I swear it wasn't there 3 days ago. This also aligns with the weird experience that I had with my neighbor the day before noticing this new wall. The neighbor from behind my house was walking in our shared laneway as I was letting my dog in the house after I got home from work. I hadn't met him yet. I've seen him over the fence as my deck allows me to see over the fence and further past his house, but I've never spoken to him. He approached the fence and started talking to me. He was acting as if we had spoken previously, not by anything he mentioned, just by the way he spoke. I told him I was enjoying the new house. It was completely renovated before we began renting, so it's really nice. He then told me that he had seen the house arrive in 3 pieces on a truck. We knew the house was brought in, but as far as I knew, and the video that I had seen, they craned in the whole house as 1 piece. I saw it strapped to the truck and everything. I asked my partner to show me the video, and she doesn't remember really anything about it. If the house came in pieces, it would only make sense that this wall exists, but that's not what I remember. Every time I look at that wall, I feel a little more crazy. We can't explain what happened in front of us. This happened on one of the first days of January in this year. It might not be impressive or the typical type of mystery, but to this day, I keep thinking about it and I'm still baffled. My 2 friends and I had met to hang out in the evening. It was a Friday, but there weren't too many people around since Christmas, here in Spain it lasts until January 7th, had just ended recently. We were sitting at a table outside of a cafe and cocktail bar having some beers. It's important to mention that we were not already drunk and that we were all 3 young, tall, fit men accustomed to drinking regularly, which means we have a high tolerance for alcohol. Also, I'd like to mention that one of my friends is a policeman and the other friend is an engineering student, while I'm already an engineer. We bought 4 bottles of beer. All the bottles were of the same brand, which was Aguila, which had a unique blue label attached to it. The table was round and we were properly distributed around it, forming the vertices of an equilateral triangle. That means that each of us was watched by the other 2 at all times, as was any person that could pass behind. We were joking and laughing and almost finishing the second bottle, when suddenly my fellow engineer friend stopped laughing and interrupted with a mystified expression. He said, "What's that beer doing there?" When I heard it, I couldn't make any sense of it, but when I realized what he meant, I stopped laughing very quickly as well. One of the small bottles was no longer a blue Aguila beer, but an Estrella Galicia beer that had red and black label colors. It was also of the same size. Now, it's time to state a few things. You could say that the three of us got confused and not all the beers were of the Blue Label brand. I would respect that, thinking as I would probably think the same too if I were you. But not only are my other two friends and I 100% sure, but also the offer we bought was an Aguila offer. I personally split the fourth bottle of Blue Aguila among the three of us. And as I stated earlier, we are young men, never take drugs, we're mentally and physically healthy, and we had never experienced anything glitchy or paranormal before. There were 3 tables around us separated by approximately 1 to 1.5 meters from us. Only one person came behind one of us, and my other friend and I saw her moving at all times without having a beer and much less doing anything suspicious with ours. The idea of a person approaching our table, taking one of our empty bottles, and then replacing it with another different empty bottle is just preposterous. I thought that maybe one of my friends might have done a prank to mock us, but we never looked away from the table or each other. At least, I didn't. We quickly became serious because we were afraid of having drunk something poisoned with some kind of drug. We were thinking about how to properly investigate what the hell just happened when a random mad old woman came from inside yelling at us and ordering us to leave. Apparently, she was the owner of the bar next to the one that we bought the beers from, and she was upset we were sitting at a table that was from her place. We didn't notice since at this spot there are many bars very close to each other, and the tables were all almost the same. We joked about it because it felt like if an NPC was forced to spawn to divert our conversation and spoil our attempt to investigate any further. Honestly, I don't know, I can't really tell what happened, and up to this day, we keep talking about it. I decided to write about this after something even creepier happened to me yesterday. But this time, I told no one about it since I feel like I wouldn't be believed. I'll start to lose respect or credibility. I can't blame anyone though, since I'm also a skeptical bastard who would also think I'm crazy or just lying to get attention or something. Since here I can speak anonymously and you'll probably want to know about it, I'll make a post about it soon. And I, Darek, will ask him if I can read that one too. My little silly story. So I was in high school, or secondary school as we call it here in the UK. Back in the 90s, we were allowed to leave school to get dinner from the local fish and chip shop around the corner. My friends and I used to do this several times a week as it beat staying in school for lunch. Anyway, one day, I come back to school from buying takeout food and I am immediately intercepted by Mrs. Palmer, the deputy head. She almost grabs me by the collar, she's so angry at me. I'm taken straight to the head teacher's office, protesting all the way, and trying to finish my chips. It turned out that I, a person who had been off the premises all lunch, had been seen by several staff members and students disrupting a lunchtime detention club by jumping at the windows and doors and swearing loudly at everybody inside. This included Mrs. Palmer, who swore that it had been me and nobody else. So, I proclaimed my innocence. I asked the head teacher to ask my friends where I had been. The strange thing about it is I grew up in a very rural area in a small town with a very small school. It's only about 100 students or so. Out of those 100 students, only myself and my friends had really discovered punk music and grunge music. And of all those people, I was the only male student with long hair in the entire school. I got detention, and I couldn't fucking explain what had happened. school locker morphed. I was a senior in high school when this happened. Here's the background of the story. I usually go to my locker in the morning to put whatever books I won't be using in there till later. I came back at lunch to my locker and put stuff away for lunch. I turned to leave. I walked a few paces, and there were other students walking about, and a classmate stopped me to ask me a question. I then remembered that I had forgotten something and turned around to go back to my locker. At this point, there were no students or teachers walking by. I find it a bit odd since it's lunchtime and usually there's a mad, loud rush to get to lunch. My friend stopped and was staring at my locker, motionless. Not even her long hair was moving down her back. I faced my locker and saw that it looked like it had exploded. My stuff was sticking out, and the vents were bent funny and the door was warped. The locker looked like it had a tinge of a color that expressed it happened a long time ago. That wasn't like that when I had just walked away from it a few seconds ago. It was also eerily quiet. My friend's eyes are wide and looking at me. She said in a trembling voice, "What the fuck?" I noticed that the light had dimmed. I was now worried that my stuff was all tangled and broken. What was going to happen to us? I turned to my friend and asked her if she saw what I was seeing, and she silently nodded. We stared at each other, I think not daring to look at it again. Just then, the bell rang. My heart jumped, and everything was back to normal. I could hear people talking. I turned and my locker was back to normal. I looked at my watch and it shows that lunch was now over. I looked at my friend and she was shaking. I took her by the shoulder. I said, "It's over." She took my arm and let out a big sigh of relief. She had to run to class and said goodbye. I approached my locker and touched the lock, and it felt ice cold. I noticed that it opened without me putting in the password. Did I just forget to lock it? I don't know, but my friend and I never mentioned it again, but I just found it weird that we both saw it. Wallet found in a car I'd last been in the day before I last had it. I've been trying to think of an actual explanation for this for weeks at this point, slowly wondering if I'm just going insane. What happened was that after school, I got in my friend's car to go hang out at his house. Just me and him, and my wallet was in my pocket the entire time. There's no way he messed with it or anything. I go home a couple of hours later. I decided to walk home, and I was not in his car anymore for the remainder of the day. Later that night, I was talking to a girl in my math class on FaceTime. School pictures came up. I distinctly remember taking out and unzipping my wallet to show her my school ID, because I think my picture this year is especially awful. I look high and I didn't smile. I put the ID back in my wallet and I didn't think about it anymore. Nothing weird yet. The next day, my friend texts me a picture of my wallet and says he found it on his passenger seat. I told him it must be someone else's because I had my wallet last night after I'd already gotten home. But no, he had my license and my cards and everything that was in it. I asked him if he was fucking with me. Like, maybe I thought he took pictures of it before I left yesterday or something. Then I realized I didn't have it, and now all of a sudden I couldn't find it. He drove to my house and gave it to me. I told him again that I definitely had it last night, and he thought that I was just fucking with him. I told him he could ask the girl that I was talking to, and I told him he would have noticed if it had been in the seat yesterday. We're both kind of freaked out now. I genuinely can't think of an explanation. Math class girl remembers me showing her my ID. I think I'm going insane. teleported again, this time multiple times. 22 months ago to the day, I relocated from Vegas to southern New Mexico, the Las Cruces area. My previous experience happened in the Vegas area and a couple of times in Utah. I haven't had one of these instances in several years and no glitches of any kind since moving here. Until today. On my way to a client's house in West El Paso/Sunland Park, I've driven to this house half a dozen times in the last 2 weeks. I know the way by heart, but I still use the nav because there's major construction on the I-10 between Cruces and El Paso right now, and Google lets me know about closures and delays. Today it says there's a 27-minute delay. That's the first weirdness. I practically flew through the construction. All the red spots on the nav just weren't. No delays. Made the usual 55-minute trip in under 40 minutes. When I got to the Sunland Park exit, the nav still said my ETA was the same, despite this. Weird. But here's where it really goes off the rails. My client lives off Mesa Hills, past Mesa. Those are two different roads, and this matters, so let's just keep it straight. Sunland Parkway goes through to Mesa. Both are large arterials with lots of businesses. Beyond Mesa, from the freeway, Sunland turns into mostly residential neighborhoods. Mesa Hills is a much smaller road that leads to some nicer houses up the hill, again past Mesa. But it winds down from Mesa and curves into Sunland Parkway between the freeway and Mesa. Hopefully, you followed all of that. Because I'm early, I decide I want to stop and grab a taco. The nav says to turn onto Mesa Hills, but I decide to go straight and stop at a Taco Bell that's right off the SP/Mesa intersection. So I go straight. I stop at the next light. I go through the intersection, and suddenly, I'm in the residential part of Sunland Parkway past Mesa. Like I drove through a portal, and I'm really confused. That's a fair ways up the road. There's no way that I zoned out that stretch of road in the time it took me to cross an intersection. Also, less than 2 minutes have passed on my clock. I think whatever, U-turn. I get to the light that should be Mesa, and I'm back by the freeway. There's the Ulta, the Stanton Optical, Barnes & Noble, Best Buy. I never crossed Mesa. If I continue straight, I'll be back on I-10. Now, I'm really weirded out. I look at the clock, and less than 3 minutes have passed. That's impossible. I turn on to Mesa Hills. I drive on Mesa Hills for way too long. Landmarks are out of place. I feel like I've driven for 15 minutes, and I look at the clock, but it's only been 4 minutes. I get to Mesa on Mesa Hills. At least it exists here, I guess. I'm still ahead of schedule, which shouldn't be possible with all the distance that I've covered. I turn left to head back towards Sunland Parkway and that apparently interdimensional Taco Bell. I noticed that all of the construction that was on Mesa last time I was here a couple of days ago is gone. So, I guess that's nice. I get my Taco Bell, I turn back onto Mesa and head towards Mesa Hills. All the construction is back. All of it. The left lane is torn up. There are cones and trucks and crap. I can't turn left onto Mesa Hills because the construction is now blocking this, and none of this was here 5 minutes ago. I look at the clock, and I'm suddenly running late. All the time that it should have taken to go up and back on Sunland and then up Mesa Hills is suddenly now back on the clock. Either that, or I spent 17 minutes in the drive-thru. That would be it, except it isn't. I worked for about 90 minutes. I look at the clock, and over 3 hours have passed. I didn't fall asleep or anything. My clients would have noticed, and I have no idea where the extra 2 hours went. WTF, man. Screw this. Now, it's rush hour. I better hurry to get home. or I'm gonna be in traffic for forever. I got home, through the construction, during rush hour, through the areas that the nav said was backed up, in 32 minutes, and I wasn't driving fast. Now remember, this is normally a 55-minute drive for me. I'm confused, and I'm starting to feel very detached. Blinked and changed locations. I think this fits posting criteria. It low-key freaked me out. I'm an actor, and I had just left an energy class where we were working on how to call in certain energies and open and close chakras in order to help us access different emotions for the characters that we may be playing. We finished with a meditation, and I was feeling really lighthearted and energetic. As I'm walking down 7th Avenue in Manhattan, it's packed because of a Knicks game, I think, at Madison Square Garden, so I opted to cross the street to avoid the crowd. I distinctly remember crossing at the light in the crosswalk on 34th Street. But somehow, what felt like a moment later, I was back on the previous side of the street again in the middle of the crowd, walking like I'd never crossed. I stopped and stood there trying to figure out what the fuck had just happened. It was like I blinked and ended up back where I started. I stood there and retraced my steps over and over in my mind and couldn't come up with a plausible reason. What's more strange is that today, only 24 hours later, I have a hard time remembering crossing the street at all. Like, that memory is just gone. Though I remembered it clearly yesterday. Has this ever happened to you? And would you consider this a glitch in the Matrix? My phone just vanished into thin air. I had come home tired, and I clearly remember dropping my phone on my bed. I spent the rest of the day in the corner of my room finishing a book, and when I went to go check my phone, it had vanished. I figured I must have kept it somewhere else, so I didn't worry too much. But after looking for about a half hour or so, I realized it was nowhere to be found. This room doesn't have too many things, and it's pretty neat, so there wasn't much place for my phone to hide. This was 2 days ago. Yesterday, I even called my friend over, and we'd emptied out my closet and drawers. Today, I even lifted my very heavy mattress off of its bed frame, and my phone was nowhere to be found. Nobody was in my room that day except for me, and I 100% didn't leave my phone anywhere else. I've scoured every corner of my room and house, and I'm starting to freak out. I even checked my dad's car just to be sure. I'm a teenager, so if my phone is lost, then that means my parents won't ever let me go out anywhere without it. And I had so many valuable pictures on my phone of my family and friends that I'll miss. What do I do? Does anyone have any idea of where my phone could have gone, or how to get it back? As an Android, so I can't use Find My iPhone. I asked my friends to call it multiple times, but they said it was turned off, which is odd, since I remember it was at least at 30% when I lost it. Google's Find My Phone website couldn't track my phone. Where did it go? This story was posted 11 days ago at the time of recording this, and as of at least 6 days ago from what I can tell, the OP still has not found her phone. A tear in space, a glitch in the Matrix. This did happen, and it's not made up. I still find myself reluctant to tell what I saw. It's something that I've never, ever told a stranger before, and I've never heard anyone else who's experienced anything close, and it's nonsensical. The incident happened on a clear summer day in Northern California in the late 90s, not too far from Travis Air Force Base. A friend of mine wanted to see some car rims that another friend was selling. He lived one street away, so I went with my friend. There were a group of guys talking about the rims. Since I wasn't interested in the haggling, I walked to the edge of the driveway to wait. Another guy who I was acquainted with from the group walked over to me, and we were looking at a small prop plane that was flying several miles away. There wasn't a cloud in the sky when a part of the sky started to glitch and warp like it was shorting out or something. It was massive in size. From the center of the glitch, a cloud-like structure started to form from nothing. It began to swirl horizontally with the bottom facing us, and it started to grow in size, kind of like a sideways tornado. It grew larger and larger. We both looked at each other and he said, "What the cinnamon toast kicks is happening?" It started to feel like it was out of body. Nothing was registering that this could happen. My known reality was being shattered, and we were transfixed by it. As we kept watching, another part of the sky began to glitch in the upper right, a lot further away. It looked like a huge piece of fabric of space was trying to rip open right in front of us, and then this long, vertical line materialized. In an instant, it was open. It was massive in size. It looked like a parallel universe had been opened. You could see the edge of this world and the difference past the opening, but it was hard to describe. There was a huge void on the other side. We were peering past the curtain. It was as if looking into another dimension. But this is where it doesn't make sense. As if any of this has made sense so far. A huge battleship slowly appeared in the void on the other side of the tear, as if uncloaking. It was floating in the middle of nothing. It was larger than any ship on Earth, but it still looked man-made. The ship had more masts and levels than any ship I've ever seen. There weren't any, turrets or weapons or anything. It was gray with no markings whatsoever. It looked like a ghost ship, something the Navy might have built but couldn't. I was able to look at the different areas of the ship, and I didn't see any signs of life. It hovered there for what seemed like 10 minutes, and I got the feeling as if we weren't supposed to be seeing this. Then, the opening slammed shut in an instant. Everything was back to normal. The sky returned as if it was before and nothing ever happened. I looked at my friend and said, Did that just happen?" He nodded his head yes, and he was so freaked out, as was I. He then had to leave with his friends. I kept wondering what to do now. I mean, how do I process this? Who can I tell? And even if I found out somebody who would trust me to tell them, what difference would it make? Would anyone believe me? Several days later, I wanted to talk to him about it, and he said, "Nope, I don't want to talk about that." And we've never discussed it, even to this day. It left me questioning my own reality. It happened, and I don't know what happened. Many people have seen flying objects, but not like this. It's left me perplexed and alone, honestly. I've always wondered if that prop plane saw it too. Nothing was ever reported, and more people should have seen it. Was it some type of Philadelphia experiment? The ship USS Eldridge looks nothing like what I saw, but that's the closest explanation that I can come up with. Was it some type of teleportation experiment that just went wrong? It didn't look like any type of alien ship, and it also didn't look like anything humans could build. I don't think I'll ever really know what it was. I'm no expert on these types of experiences, but does anyone have any idea what it might have been? Has anyone else heard or seen anything similar? I want to thank you for reading my encounter. my boyfriend's watch strap changed. When my boyfriend and I first started dating, something bizarre occurred that still baffles us to this day. He came to visit me one day wearing his watch, which had a thick fabric strap colored in this peculiar greenish-brown hue. I casually remarked that a thinner band might complement his wrist better. His response was a nonchalant, "I don't know, I just like this one," and we moved on from the topic. Fast forward a few weeks and he's wearing the same watch again, but this time, the strap is totally different. It's this sleek, dark brown leather, and I'm like, "Hey, nice strap. This leather looks better than that thick one," thinking that he took my advice. But no, he insists that it's always been that way. I swear up and down about our conversation on the thick fabric strap. He had no recollection of our discussion regarding the watch strap. To prove his point, he digs up old pics of himself sporting the same leather strap. It's like my memory's playing tricks on me. It's been months now, and we're still scratching our heads over what happened. Did I accidentally hop into a different dimension? I mean, seriously, if anybody's got a clue or even a wild theory, I'm all ears. We're open to any insights or theories that might shed light on this glitch. I experienced this glitch a day after Eid, and I'm still confused by it. So, for the past few days leading up to Eid, my siblings and I do this thing every year where we would strategically plan when to wash the dishes so that we wouldn't be the one to wash them on Eid. Because, I kid you not, every single dish inside our household would have been used on Eid, so plenty of dishes would have to have been cleaned up, and we don't have a dishwasher. So, for example, our clean the dishes timetable in our house would go according to our ages. We would wash the dishes from oldest to youngest in turns. We're 3 siblings, and that's our only duty in the house, so the day before Eid rolls around and I'm happy because I did the dishes that afternoon, and I'm pretty sure I won't be the one to wash the dishes on Eid. Since I'm the middle child, it's now my younger brother's turn. He washes the dishes after dinner the night before Eid. Usually he leaves it until the morning because he couldn't be bothered, but now my sister will have to clean the dishes on Eid. And for those of you that don't know, Eid is a celebration of breaking the fast in Muslim culture. Okay, so now that that's sorted, I'm happy. Only my parents stayed up the whole night making a variety of desserts for when family visits on Eid, so there are a few dirty dishes. Well, the morning of Eid rolls around and my older sister takes this as an opportunity to clean up those little bit of dishes, and then it would make her turn full away. So, guess he's going to wash the dishes once the day of Eid ends and all the family has finally left, leaving 3 tables full of dirty dishes. Me. This is where the glitch comes in. The day has ended and it's quietened down. I'm left standing alone in the kitchen in front of hundreds of dirty dishes. I start cleaning, swearing under my breath murmurs of child labor. It's a joke, by the way. I mean, washing the dishes is a basic thing to do. So I'm scrubbing each and every dish, and then I finally finish. I celebrate. I go to sleep, as did everyone else. And the next morning comes around, and I'm woken by my annoying-ass older sister screaming at me. "Hey, why didn't you do the dishes last night? It was your turn." She laughed, basically mocking me because she knows that she did me dirty. I literally groaned and told her to shut it when it finally dawned on me what she said. I got up and walked towards the kitchen only to find every single dirty dish was still there on the counters, waiting to be cleaned up. Now, I don't know if I'm going crazy, but I literally washed the dishes the night before. I mean, I guess one explanation could be that I genuinely did not want to wash all those dishes, so my brain must have convinced me that I did, so that I could go to sleep peacefully. But how would I explain vividly remembering scrubbing each and every dish? I mean, I literally remember it taking me 2 hours, and I finally went to bed at 1:16 a.m. Maybe the same thing happened in a parallel version of me, and I was just the unlucky one and got the broken end of the stick. I cleaned mine, and she must have gone to sleep with the dishes still dirty, and we switched universes? I don't know. There's a comment on this story that says, maybe next year when it's your turn again, just leave the dishes overnight. Maybe the multiverse will make it equal again, and they'll be cleaned by the time you wake up in the morning. Found missing necklace. Once, I had taken off my jewelry and placed it on my jewelry dish right in front of me to do my hair. When I was done, I put everything on except my necklace was missing. I took it off and then put it in the dish with everything else in succession, and now it was just gone. I told my boyfriend about it, and he said not to worry and just to look for it tomorrow. Over the next few days, I looked for it everywhere, and then finally, I decided to do a deep clean of my room. And long story short, the necklace was under my bed, directly in the center. And I know the center of my bed because I have a king bed. It's hard to reach, and I have a support beam there, dead smack in the middle. And the necklace was wrapped around it in a circle. I don't know what happened or how it even got there. Even if I had just dropped it, it wouldn't have fallen down and then straight back 40 inches to the middle of under my bed, wrapped around the support beam. It doesn't make any sense, and I don't understand. Just moments ago, I had a weird glitch moment when making my tea. As the title says, I just had the weirdest moment when making my tea. I wanted to specify this was such a minor event to preface that this is not the same weird, large-scale thing like some of the most popular moments. Unfortunately, and I was the only one to see/have it happen to. But my first thought was, hey, that's a glitch. I was making my breakfast, which I always have a tea with. Tea was mostly ready to go, and I just had to add milk. It started pouring like normal, but then it started shooting out of the mug like a stream. This wasn't just me spilling it down the side of the mug or missing the mug or anything. It was pouring into the mug normally for a moment, but then a second actual stream skipped out over the ledge of the mug. I stopped pouring immediately, and a small little puddle of milk, about 4 or 5 inches from the mug, formed. It was just weird, and when I say it was flowing like normal, I mean it. If you imagine a laminar flow of milk out of the bag, then a separate laminar flow from the surface of the mug and onto the counter, it was like that. Here's an additional note. I'm in Canada, so the milk was pouring out of a bag, and I want to specify that it's just milk coming out of a small hole, not the jug or carton where a lot can pour out all at once. Anyway, just wanted to share. That story freaked me out, man. The word laminar, milk in a bag, and milk in your tea? Yeah, I don't know. Let's do some more. My phone just teleported to the other side of the room. This literally just happened, and I'm so confused. I was just texting on my phone whilst in my bed. I put my phone next to me on my bed as I went to drink some water from my bedside table. When I reached back for my phone, It wasn't there. I was so confused and I started searching around my entire bed and beside the table and on the floor for my phone, but I couldn't find it. After about a minute, I saw it on the floor on the other side of the room by my desk. What the frosted flakes? There's no way it could have gotten there, and I would have had to have thrown it for my phone to reach that side of my room, which I definitely didn't do. Man disappears with my coin. My dad used to work in a car lot. He still does today, but he had a friend there who worked on the opposite side that my dad did. The lot that my dad works in is really old and has a lot of old folks in there. And one of them was this guy who, I forgot his name, but I'll just call him Tony because I remember his name ending with an NY. Tony was a pretty old guy who had a lot of cool collections inside his carrier. The car lot uses shipment carriers that you can buy or rent out for work, and one of them was this old 1922 Silver Liberty coin, which he gave me as a birthday present when I was 7. Fast forward a few years, and I start carrying the coin around with me as some sort of lucky charm. But then, one day, as I'm cleaning my room, I pick up the jacket that the coin was inside of, and the coin falls out of the jacket and then onto the floor. Since the coin is silver, it made a pretty loud sound when it hit the floor, and my tenants and parents could both hear it. However, it was doing the thing that coins do on the ground when it's just kind of swirling. I try to pick it up, but it just vanishes. I look around my entire room and it's gone. After that day, I never saw the coin again, and my dad also never saw Tony show up at the car lot again. Keep in mind, this was in later 2021. I'm talking like November late, so right before the coin would have turned 100. I don't know if the age has anything to do with it, but there's no way that something that everyone heard drop, that I saw drop, just vanish along with the guy who took it. Right? Gummy vitamins switched places. This happened a few years ago, and I posted it on my Facebook at the time. My 14-year-old daughter was in the kitchen doling out some of our daily gummy vitamins, and I went in the kitchen just as she was starting to pry open a brand new foil-sealed bottle. I said, "Hey, wait, no, we already have one that's open in the basket of other vitamins. Let's finish those first." So she put the cap back on the still sealed bottle and set it down and pawed through all the bottles in our vitamin basket until she found the other bottle of multivitamins, the one that had been previously opened. She pulled it out and took off the cap, and it was foil sealed. She goes, "Huh?" And then she looked next to her at the other still sealed bottle that she had previously been going to peel open before I stopped her. She took the lid off, and it was open. No foil seal remaining at all. She and I both saw what happened, and we looked at each other and froze, and then both at the same time we said, "What?" She asked, "You saw that happen, right?" Unexplainable door rattling. I, a 16-year-old female, and my brother, 19, were home alone one night, messing around and playing video games until about 4 a.m. After calling it a night, I went into my room, which is connected to his room by a shared bathroom, and I suddenly got an intense feeling that I should lock my door. I never lock my door, like ever. But for some reason, something inside me was just screaming too. I faintly heard a man making a shh noise and my dog growling slightly, but he didn't bark, which is weird because he always freaks out whenever anyone comes into the living room, even my brother. Then my doorknob starts rattling violently. It's not your typical trying to open a door rattle. It was crazy, like the door handle was tweaking on meth or something. I thought it was my brother playing some stupid trick, but I ran straight to his room, through the bathroom in a matter of 2 seconds, and he was still sitting there, headphones on, playing video games. He couldn't possibly have made it back in time. I started shouting hysterically about how that wasn't funny, and he was dead confused. Armed with a flashlight and a Batman action figure, we went back to my room. The doorknob was still high and tweaking on crystal meth. My brother reached out and touched the door, and he felt a shock. And just like that, the rattling stopped. I slept with my door locked for the next couple of nights, and it happened another 2 or 3 times, and then it just stopped. My brother, on the other hand, thought he became a ghostbuster. Any explanations or debunks that you can offer would be appreciated. This person includes an edit that says, "It couldn't have been the dog. He's too sausage-like and daft to even reach the door handle. And I know this because I've witnessed him trying to open doors before." I think this person intended to stab somebody in the eyes with Batman's ears. I might have seen an NPC today. The story is super simple, but I'm at a loss for words. A couple of hours ago, I went to have a walk along the seaside. I live very close by. Today is super stormy and rainy, so there's hardly any people around. I'm walking on a long pier that has only one point of entry from the beach, and then it stretches into the sea. I'm going back just by myself, and then I see a guy wearing a black sports jacket running. I notice him distinctly because I thought to myself how crazy it was to run in such crazy weather. So he's passing me by while I'm walking close to the end of the pier. And suddenly, I see a guy passing by and running back to the beach with a bright green jacket on. I immediately feel super startled. I clearly remember that the only guy I saw at the pier was the one in the black jacket, and there was nobody else there. I thought I might have just gotten things mixed up and that maybe, just maybe, that first guy really was wearing a green jacket. So, as he runs away from the pier, I turn my head back, expecting not to see anyone at the far end of the pier, but there he was, the guy in the black jacket. The moment I saw him, my mouth just dropped and I got shivers. What the heck? I'm absolutely 100% sure there was no one else at the pier except for me and the guy in the black jacket. How did this guy in the green jacket just pop up out of nowhere? I even went along the pier to see whether it was some just extra exits that I didn't know exist, which was stupid because it stretches into the open sea, but still. So, I guess I could have seen an NPC, or at least there was some kind of weird and albeit trivial glitch in the Matrix. No crazy stuff, just a guy that appeared out of nowhere. Frustrating glitch. Yesterday, one of the most frustrating glitches that ever happened to me. My boyfriend had to work at home, so I went alone to do the shopping and run some errands. When I returned, so as not to arrive too early and bother him, I stopped at a cafe to get a drink. I ordered a vermouth, which they serve with a tapa of something. It's quite common here in Spain to drink it before eating. So they served it to me in a nice glass, similar to the ones used for wine tastings, that is, with a narrow mouth and the glass widens downwards. I like to say that it's a glass with a belly. I see the set with the tapa, the ice, the orange slice, and I decide to send a photo to my boyfriend to make him envious. I send it, and he answers me, "But I can't take my eyes off the photo anymore. That's not my glass." The glass that appears in the photo is a normal glass, almost as wide at the top as it is at the bottom. There's no curves or belly, as I say. I try to take another photo thinking that it would be the effect of some reflection or something, but no. Every time I looked at the glass with the camera, I saw a different glass. I even made a very short video where it seemed to me that there were no reflections, and yet the glass is still different. I told my boyfriend what was happening and my frustration at not being able to show him that that was not my glass, and he laughed, saying that surely there would be an explanation, and at this point I even considered stealing the glass so that he could see it for himself. So, this is my glitch. I couldn't get that glass to show up on my camera, and I went home wondering why I just hadn't ordered a beer instead. Tool transforming glitch. I bought a set of 5 metal files, the sanding tools, in a little sleeve with 5 slots, one for each of the files. There's a square prism, a triangular prism, a flat style, there's a round, and a half round with a flat on the other side. They're distinctly a set with the same purple handles, and they're all the same length. This is the only set of files that I have ever bought, and I bought them in 2019 when I bought a 3D printer for cleaning up prints. They've been in the same box with all of my printing stuff, and I use them maybe once a week. I've used them hundreds of times since 2019, so I know them very well. Here's the part where it gets weird. Today, I opened up the case and went to pull out the half round to work on my cyber deck, and pulled each one out, realizing that it was the wrong one. I thought, that's weird. I definitely just checked each of them, so I pull them all out, and lo and behold, there's no half round, but there are now 2 triangular prism types, the usual square, the flat, and the round rod type. I've never bought another file, and these came from a dollar store, so the chance of me even being able to find this exact set almost 5 years after buying them, and then simply poking one unneeded new one in the case, then losing the rest of the extras as well, as the only half round is such a ludicrous concept that there's just no way that happened. Like I said, I use these weekly, and they've never left my room. I've never bought another set of files, and they are absolutely a distinct set. I've used the half round one many times because the flat one, the half round, and the round are the 3 most useful ones. I'm single, I've got no family, or kids, or pets. I do have roommates, but we all lock our doors. It would be difficult for them to find my tools at all since I work from home. How in the kicks is this possible? Anyway, that's my rant. Thanks. So this took place probably closer to 15 years ago. I'm somebody who struggles with depression, anxiety, as well as insomnia, so that could very well be the reason that any of this took place. I was in desperate need of sleep. I'd been up for about 4 days, maybe a little more. The only reason I know the story is because my mom asked me what I remembered the following day. When I said that I wasn't sure, she said that I had walked outside the front door of my house and stood on our stoop. Apparently, I had fallen asleep. What I remember was having a very deep but also casual conversation with myself, wearing exactly what I was wearing. But the other version of me was in black and white, kind of like an old TV show. In the moment, I was convinced that I was wide awake. I remember it as if it had just happened. We talked about the things that I was struggling with, things like self-image, acceptance, advice, and friendships, like just two buddies talking. But the weirdest part was I was almost watching it as if somebody else was watching the two of us talk, kind of out of body. There was the colored version of me, as well as the black and white version. The colored one looking like everyday real life, and then the black and white one looking like something out of an old TV show. What do you think this was? I'd be curious to hear what anybody has to say. My dad disappeared before my eyes. I'm extremely confused, and this happened just 10 minutes ago, so I'm writing this down now before I forget any details. My dad lives in a camper in my yard, so I texted him asking if he had an onion because I needed one to make dinner for later. I go to the bathroom, and as I'm in the bathroom, I hear him come into the house. So I walk out and I see him standing at the fridge, closing the door. I continue walking, and all of a sudden, he's in the living room. I looked at him and said, "I thought you were just at the fridge." And he said, "I was, but I came to your bedroom door and realized that you weren't in there." And by the way, my bedroom door is in the living room. There's no way that he wouldn't have seen me on his way to my bedroom door in the living room from the kitchen, and no way that I wouldn't have seen him walk into the living room from the fridge. So what the hell just happened? I didn't bother explaining any further to him because he's a skeptical person, and he doesn't talk about stuff like that or have any interest in things that don't have a logical explanation. Someone in the comments of this story suggested, maybe it was you who disappeared for a moment. My brother just sent me this. So, I had to drive west to a wedding in a name of a town that I'll keep secret just for anonymity's sake. It's in the middle of nowhere. No signal, no GPS. It's like some Bermuda Triangle stuff. So, I drop her off and I go freestyle garage selling. I see this one farmhouse that has a garage sale sign, the garage door open and tables with stuff on them. No other customers though, just me. I pull in and go in the garage and I begin to browse. I saw a couple of knives and other things that I liked, but no prices. There was also no one manning the sale, just me in a garage full of no-priced items. I looked at all the stuff and I waited a couple of minutes for anyone to emerge from an open door that led to the house, but no one ever came. So I say out loud, "Hello? You having a garage sale?" There's no answer. So I go over to the open door and there's an old man sitting at a table in my direct line of sight, and he appeared to be reading some sheets of paper. No distress, and he appeared to be in good spirits, but this is where it gets, really odd. I say again, now directly to him, basically with just the table separating us, "You having a garage sale?" And I get nothing, no response. But not like he was ignoring me, but like I wasn't even actually there. Like I was just a ghost that was observing him. I thought, okay, well, maybe he's deaf, so I knock on the door, hoping he'd pick up on the wood vibration. But nothing. No typical human reflex of a stranger making noise and asking questions in your direction. I even crouched down to get my eyes to his exact level, and I waved my hands at him. Not 1 ounce of acknowledgement. He wasn't ignoring me, I just wasn't there to him. His behavior was organic and he just kept messing with those sheets of paper. Well, I backed out of the garage slowly and I got in my car, in ludicrous style rolled out. We don't think he was visually impaired because he was reading papers, and he didn't seem hyper fixated on them. He didn't really seem like he was ignoring us. And if he was deaf, then getting down at eye level from a few feet away and waving his hands, that would surely make him look up, right? I don't know. It was so bizarre that it just had me questioning if I was a ghost. What do you make of all of this? Weirdest thing I've ever had happen. So, I think this was a glitch, or maybe I'm just going crazy. I went to the mall with a friend of mine that we all go to all the time. The mall isn't that big, so it's pretty easy to remember the layout and the stores and stuff. Well, one day, walking by, it looked like a new store was opening where there used to be a Journeys. We went in to check it out since we were bored. There wasn't much in it, assuming because it was still being put together. And they had these cool plastic chandeliers, so I bought one. They were literally one of the only things in the store. And to be honest, none of the stuff made much sense. They had like 5 of these chandeliers, one rack of clothes that literally looked like they were from the early 2000s, and one of those hand-shaped chairs, and some random accessories at the register. A few days later, the friend that I went with said that she wanted to go get one of the same chandeliers for her room, so we went back. When we got to the mall, the store wasn't there anymore, and the Journeys was back. We were confused, so we asked one of the employees what happened to the other store, and they had no clue what we were talking about. The Journeys/chandelier store was directly next to the food court area, so we asked a couple of other stores/food places if they knew what happened to that new store. But none of them had a clue what we were talking about. No one recalled any new store being there at all. We checked the whole mall and no new store existed. What makes it so weird is there's only one food court. It was a very memorable landmark, and we were positive it was in the same spot as the Journeys store. I don't know. It was super weird, though. Washed my pockets. A few weeks ago, I wore a new romper to work. My boss and the director of the show we were running loved it, so we had a minute backstage showing it off, and I exclaimed, "It even has pockets," which was the main draw for me to even purchase the romper, as I'm running around the building constantly and have keys and a phone to carry. So fast forward, and I've worn this romper many times to work. It's the best. My boss and director each bought one too. I finally washed mine after a few years. Ugh. Gross. Oh no. I finally washed mine after a few wears, and when I put it on today, I went to toss my phone into my pocket, but there was no pocket there. I searched online and many reviews mentioned the pockets. I asked my boss and she said hers also has pockets, but mine just literally disappeared. All I can think is that some person in some other dimension now magically has pockets in her romper. I heard my cat meowing at my door while she was already inside. So, for some context, my cat always sleeps with me every night, and I always sleep with my bedroom door closed. Whenever my cat decides that she wants to come to bed, but I'm already in my room, she meows at the door so I can come open it to let her in. My cat also has a very distinct, unique, and recognizable meow. It's very high-pitched and kitten-like. She's so adorable. I also have no other cats in or around the house. Well, just a couple minutes ago, I was laying in bed, scrolling on my phone before I go to sleep soon. I very clearly heard my cat's meow on the other side of my door, so I was getting ready to go let her in when I realized she was already inside my room, literally sleeping on my legs. I would have thought I was just hearing things, but when I looked at her, she had woken up and was staring at the door, all perked up, kind of like she heard it too. I'm really confused because it was very obviously her meow. Well, I went and I opened the door just to check, and there was nothing there. It wasn't a sound from my phone. I wasn't looking at any videos, and it definitely came from outside my bedroom door. I'm home alone, so it wasn't anyone playing a weird prank on me, and there's nothing in the area that could replicate her exact meow right against my door. So, what the hell was that? Both my cat and I clearly heard it, and it was exactly her distinct meow. I don't know. I'm totally baffled right now, and maybe even a little freaked out, because how? Suddenly, it was daylight. My husband and I experienced a sudden shift to day or something else at about midnight one night. We were outside late, smoking in my driveway. It was dark because it was the middle of the night. Suddenly, we saw a wall of light approach us from far off, not like a flash or an explosion, it was just like a wall of light. We could see it approaching despite happening, in theory, at the speed of light. Then, it was upon us. It lit up our entire neighborhood like it was daytime. But oddly, it felt like we were both in this light, and we both felt it pass through us. Then it passed behind us, and it was gone. I checked our security camera, and it indeed showed the entire world lit up like day, but it was so fast in real time, it was like a sudden blip that when I paused the video and found the point in time when it was dark, and then light, and then dark again, it was literally one frame of the video footage where everything was lit up. It was literally just one frame of the video footage where everything was lit up. I sent a screenshot to my mom and then realized the light created no shadows. It also didn't alter the shadows formed by our security light either, where that light was shining behind us towards the cars parked in front of us. Like the source was from everywhere, all around us, just as if we were in the light source. There were no shadows from us, no shadows from the cars, not even below the cars or in front. So the source was neither above us nor in front of us like a typical flash would be. The source was everywhere, and for that split fraction of a second. Yet, we'd been able to see the wall of light approaching as if it had a physical edge, and we were able to see in the moment that it was all daylight for just a second, without any shadows. It was a significant enough length of time experienced by us both to take it all in, despite seeing on camera what had been so fast. What was that? How can that even be explained? Had it been a brilliant flash of light or explosion, then we would have seen shadows created. Was it alien? Paranormal? I don't know, otherworldly even? Was there an atomic bomb and we just shifted realities? I doubt that, as we had video evidence in our new reality if that had been the case. I don't get it. There was no temperature difference either, and there was no sound. We were just suddenly in a pure light source for that moment in time as it physically passed through us, around us, and then was gone. Do you have any thoughts or rational explanations? My boyfriend and I just experienced a glitch, and I'm so confused. I swear, my boyfriend and I just experienced this glitch in the Matrix, and I'm still so confused. We're visiting his parents, and we're hanging out in the living room. They have a living room space both upstairs and downstairs. Once his parents decided to head to bed, we decided to head to the living space downstairs. I had my phone, my vape, and a phone charger plugged in behind the couch because my phone was dying. Before coming down, I made sure to grab all of my belongings, vape in pocket, had to unplug my phone before putting that in my pocket, and then I reached behind the couch to unplug the charger, and then I tossed that around my neck. Once downstairs, I set my charger on the desk before walking over to the couch and setting my phone and vape down next to me when I sat down. I asked my boyfriend for a blanket, so he reached over the ottoman and kinda tossed one at me. I got it situated on my lap and went to grab my phone next to me, but it wasn't there. I asked him, "Have you seen my phone?" Looking confused, my boyfriend says, I swear you just had it." So we both looked through the couch and around the basement before I ultimately pinged it from my watch. We looked at each other so fast when we heard it chime from upstairs. I ran up and grabbed it, not to mention it was on a half wall between the living room and dining room that things are seldomly sat on. I'm still just baffled at what happened, but a glitch is really my only logical explanation. I am well aware that it's gonna sound like I'm making stuff up at this point. But seriously, I feel like people are gonna think that I'm just writing fiction. It's too weird even for me at this point. I know the rules are one glitch per post, so I'm just gonna mention the latest one. And I have no idea what's going on at my place. So I recently started watching Twin Peaks, as like in the past few days. I'm an ex-film student, and this was always recommended to me by lecturers and friends who love film, and I thought I'd finally give it a go. It's pretty good, but I digress. But spoiler alert, there's a heart necklace that's significant in the show, like the one where you keep half and give the other half to a friend or a loved one. Anyway, I've been watching this for the past few days. I live in a house and my room is near my mom's room. I'd been watching the show when she called me in to look at her progress on this craft project that she was working on. I went in, discussed it with her, told her it looked good, and then I went back into my room. Only now, there's a half of one of those heart necklaces in the walkway to my room. The walkway that I just walked out of minutes before. The chain was gold tone with a knot in it. The pendant was mint green enamel with green gems around the edges. 1 or 2 gems were missing, and the back of it was kinda tarnished. I picked it up and I showed my mom, and we'd both never seen this necklace before. The words on it were "best friends." I could only assume that maybe my dogs had found it somewhere outside and brought it in. It seemed the only logical explanation, as we generally never have people over. I then placed it on a shelf in our hallway, as I didn't really know what to do with it. The next morning, I went to have a look, and now it's gone. There may be some explanation, but given recent events at my place, I find this really weird, and the timing with the show about a heart necklace just adding another layer of odd. My best guess is this: there's a rat in the house somewhere, maybe, and maybe it had the necklace in its nest, brought it out and took it back, and the show is just a big coincidence. But I don't know about that. Just listening to my book. This glitch in the Matrix happened to me maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I've been intending on sharing the story. But it's honestly hard for myself to even wrap my head around this, and I was the one who experienced it. And the shyness led to an action, which just led to forgetfulness. Anyway, I have excess free time today and was thinking about this event. I thought I might as well put it out there. I listen to audiobooks very actively. I use some round-the-neck Bluetooth earbuds. You won't see me without these things around my neck. I like their functionality. Just press the button and resume the book. Press it again to pause. No need to go fetching my phone out. One day, as I was packing up my laptop and other things after work, I received a call that I had been waiting for. One of those call you back instead of waiting things. And I answered it originally with my Bluetooth headset, but it was an automated system needing actual phone key inputs. So I took out my phone out of my pocket to put in the necessary information and then continued to pack up my stuff and leave. I got to my car and put my bag and carry case in the passenger seat. I spoke with the rep for about another 5 minutes or so and then completed the call. Once the call was over, my audiobook resumed playing as it should. I started up the car and drove home. Unwinding from my day listening to a book is my favorite thing to do. I don't live terribly far from work, it's maybe only 12 miles. After getting home, I start to prepare dinner while continuing to listen to my book when I hear the sound of my phone indicating another call, interrupting my listening experience. I press the button on the headset to answer the call and say hello. You can't see who's calling you when answering the phone like this, by the way. And I hear my coworker's voice. They seem a little confused. They say my name, and I say their name back. And then there's a bit of an awkward silence. I begin to wonder at the possibilities of what might have happened since leaving the office, and I ask, "Is everything all right? Is there something going on?" And they ask, "Well, are you still here?" I say, "No, I'm home now, but I have my laptop with me if you need help with something. What's going on?" And then my coworker says, "Well, I just saw that there was a cell phone on your desk and I thought you might have left yours, so I called you and it rang. I thought you had left, but then you answered the call." We were both silent then. One moment, I was in the middle of chopping up some carrots and thinking about switching gears into work mode. Then I had to dedicate all of my brain power to what my coworker just told me. As an intelligent adult human being, my response was an elegant and direct, "Huh?" followed by more silence. My coworker said, "I'm looking at your phone on your desk showing our active call right now." I move my hand down to my pocket that I keep my phone in, and I give it the old trusty pat and check, only to find that my phone pocket is empty. As my hand is now resting on my empty pocket, I start saying, "That can't be right. Bluetooth doesn't have that kind of range," only to then have the call disconnect. The Bluetooth headset gives the beep beep of it trying to find the device that it's paired to, multiple times. Then, the Bluetooth device powers itself off as it can't find its paired device or any new device that it wants to pair to. I stand in my kitchen for just a minute longer thinking about this. It must be some kind of prank or something. My coworker doesn't live very far away, but how would they have stayed close enough as I was on the freeway? I try turning on the headset as I go to my bags and check for my phone. There's nothing there. I turn the headset on as I run outside to check my car. No phone. I'm a tad flustered at this point, so I hop in the car and then I drive back to the office. Getting into the office, I head to my work area to find my phone on my desk where I had taken it out of my pocket to put in the dial pad numbers before I left. I unlocked the phone and I checked the call history to see the call log of the conversation that my coworker and I had for 2 minutes and 11 seconds. I walk over to my coworker's section to talk to him about the call, and upon seeing me, they say, "Oh, good, so you were here. You had me pretty freaked out, man." And I didn't want the kid to be scared or anything, so thinking fast, I say something like, "Yeah, someone needed my help upstairs with something." Still to this day, though, I think about this. How was I just interacting with the Bluetooth features of my phone at such a large distance? Recently, there's been a lot of studies about how most of our reality is what we can perceive, and much of our perception is dictated on what we can predict with our senses. What if, in my mind, was just predicting that my phone was in my pocket, and because of that, my Bluetooth should be connected, and after the call is completed, my audiobook would then resume playing? Or maybe whoever's in charge of watching over my simulation had a major F-up and didn't notice that I had left my phone, and was freaking out when I had realized that I didn't have it on me. I don't know. It's hard for me to wrap my head around this. What do you think? Freaking out. I work from home, and my office space is in my bedroom. My husband often makes our bed in the morning and places the AirPods that I keep under my pillow on top of my dresser. So today, I start my shift, and as per usual, I go to grab my AirPods off the dresser, but I couldn't find them. So I casually start looking for them on my dresser, looking under things and my makeup bags and my drawers, but I couldn't find them. So I go back to the bed and I look under and around everywhere. I message my husband, letting him know I can't find my AirPods anywhere, and then he writes me back, saying he put them on the dresser for me, like he does every day. So I get back to work, and once again, I couldn't find them. So I end up going to the kitchen to make me some coffee, hoping I'll see them in the kitchen somewhere, which they are not. Only to walk back into my room, and I see them perfectly placed on my dresser. Now mind you, my dresser is black, and my AirPods are, of course, white. I gasped so hard, and I had immediate chills since no one was home. Please, tell me I'm not the only one, and that this has happened to you too. Glitch with a person who disappeared. I'm a very rational person, and have been thinking about this event ever since it happened. I've talked to many people that I know about it, and they all got goosebumps when I told the story, and I'm still not sure what happened. But a person disappeared just 2 meters behind me. I was sitting at night on a bench between 2 old cemeteries. Actually, it's one cemetery, but it's separated into 2 parts by a passageway. No one has been buried there for a long time, and it's in the middle of this big German city. People go there for runs or for walks, and I like being alone at night to avoid being bothered. So I don't think it's haunted or anything similar. The bench on which I sit is almost in the middle of the pathway, and I have a clear view of both ends. The area is quite bright because they're streetlights. They're not very bright, but when you sit there for like an hour, it's bright enough not to miss anything. There's no place that someone could be hiding without me noticing, and there are high walls on both sides. At both ends, there are streets with bright streetlights as well. The bench is on one side of the path, which is approximately 2 to 4 meters wide, and I'm facing the northern part of the cemetery against a wall. But the path runs in front of me, so people have to walk past me. On the right side, there's an area with a lot of grass, which will become relevant in just a moment, with table tennis tables and some more benches, and there's a fence with some bushes. So I had to pee, and I always check if there's someone around so that I don't bother anyone. I checked both sides, no one was coming. So I stood up, went behind the bench that I was sitting on, and walked about 1 meter to the wall to a tree with 2 stems, kind of like a V shape. I double-checked to see if anyone was coming. Nothing to see, nothing to hear. So I started peeing, and when I almost finished, I saw through the 2 tree stems a dark figure walking in the middle of the path towards me under the not-so-bright streetlights. I thought, okay, I must have missed him. He just appeared, but I could have missed him. When I saw him, he was already on the path, about in the middle of it. I couldn't see much, no face, no bright hands, just a dark figure. He could have had dark skin, and I thought, okay, I have to go through with this situation. I heard him walking, and I clearly heard him walking towards me and coming closer. I finished peeing, adjusted my clothing, and I heard him come closer so that he would pass me. I turned around, but purposely in the right direction. He came from the left, so that I wouldn't have to interact with this person. I heard him while I was turning around, expecting him to be right in front of me, but there was no one. The sound of his footsteps were gone, and I was shocked. I took a look around in the direction that he was going to, and I didn't see anyone. I thought he might have turned around, but I also didn't notice anybody. He could not have walked 30 meters in 1 second. Then I thought maybe I was just misinterpreting the sounds, and he quickly went to his right side on the grass and went to a bench over there. So I took my very bright keychain flashlight and I took a look around. I went to the grass area and there was also no one. I looked behind every tree and nobody was there. The ends on both sides of this path are very brightly lit, and I looked at every possible location someone could have been hiding, but there was no one. This happened a couple of months ago, and I'm still trying to figure it out. Maybe it was a glitch in the Matrix, a rendering mistake, because there were no details on this person, but he was definitely there. I don't think it was a ghost or anything paranormal, because I clearly heard him intensely walking on the small stones on the path. Had my glitch, and it's consumed my day with confusion. I, a 42-year-old male, am relatively successful, though not as successful as I should be, or as big as a failure as I deserve. I have a great wife, who's a 34-year-old female, and 2 wonderful kids, 3 and 5. I went to bed last night a near perfectly happy man. For reference, I had a girlfriend from the age of 17 to 21 that I remained very close friends with until I met my wife 10 years ago. Her and I both decided that a close friendship wasn't possible, mostly due to the fact that we were hit or miss on rekindling our relationship for a decade. What I can only account for as a dream completely consumed my day. And the only reason I say this is because I remember going to bed in the same house that I woke up in with my wife this morning. I was at a gathering with my wife and my kids, and my old girlfriend was there with her now husband. I got up to get a drink, and she approached me, asking me to go to a back room and enter a closet. She was insistent on me accompanying her. I went inside, and this is where it was dreamy. It was almost third-person omniscient. I remember standing in her parents' driveway, discussing our breakup because she was going to another city for college, but it was kind of like a do-over. We watched our conversation, and this time, I agreed to move with her. I stepped into my own body 21 years ago and got in my truck and drove home, and from that moment, I relived my life as I moved with her. I looked in the mirror and I was 21 again. She was there, narrating the whole thing. She graduated while I worked, and then I went to college while she worked, and then we got married. We were at our wedding, celebrating at our reception. I started to remember our honeymoon in Mexico. It seemed to move fast, but we had a son and then a daughter. We went on vacations. We were in love and happy. I had a career completely different than the one that I have now. We had an incredibly nice home, good friends. I had memories of these new friends, and we were enjoying the different life. We would lay in bed at night, and I'd ask about my current wife and the life that she would end up having on the other side, and if she could take me now and show me. Very vividly. I kept thinking, this is a dream. I have to wake up. She insisted that it wasn't a dream and that I didn't have the usual dreamlike physical characteristics. I didn't believe that it was real still and insisted that we go to my parents' house to confront them and then finally leave this dream. They looked so happy. In my real life, they got divorced 18 years ago, and my formerly incredibly successful brother was living at home. He was a pothead that had no motivation to better himself. I started to remember that about him. It was as if all of my real-life memories were disappearing, and this was now my reality. I kept telling her that I didn't believe it. Well, her and I drove to the house that I live in now and just built and moved into 15 months ago. It was a vacant lot. We drove by the facility that I work at and I recognized it, but I didn't work there. I couldn't even tell you what I did there. This was starting to become very confusing. I thought, I'm gonna wake up any minute now. But I never did. I lived with this girl. We had a son and a daughter. I can see their faces and I can hear their voices. I watched them grow. My son was in baseball and the daughter in gymnastics. We had pool parties, went on vacations. I'd ask about my other wife and she'd tell me that I needed to take my medication again. I'd talk to the doctor and this life I remembered was just a figment of my imagination. All of a sudden, I was forgetting about my real life. Years had passed, and I couldn't decide what was real and what wasn't anymore. She wasn't narrating our life at this point, as it was just our life together. I would take the kids to school, to practices, come home to my wife, who I loved, and I kept thinking that it had been too long to be a dream. I went back to the doctor and I told him what I remembered, and he chalked it up to just me being schizophrenic. We struggled through that for years. I had to quit drinking just to stop the memories. It was so hard to function some days. I knew I had a family somewhere. My work started to struggle, and I spent all of my time trying to find my other wife. Then I did. I found her on Facebook. She lived 1,500 miles away. I flew out to see her. I went to her house. She was overweight and she was depressed. I tried telling her that I knew her, but I got arrested, and after posting bail, I flew back home. My wife was surprisingly supportive. I began to realize that this life was real and that I was just imagining my other one. We watched Shutter Island and I was just another nut job that had made it through life somehow. Once I accepted this, I was fine. I didn't have problems anymore. My other wife dropped the charges and I was back at work without any issues. Years later, I've just retired. I'm recounting the days 20 years ago when I thought I had another life. My wife tells me that I can. All I have to do is to go into our closet, and that confused me. She proceeds to tell me that I had gone into the closet that we went into at the gathering that I used to remember, and I can go back. I felt so confused. I asked her, Did you know this the whole time and didn't tell me?" She told me that she too remembered the gathering, and she had gone into the closet and lived her life as though we never even split. She said she made it until I died at the age of 93, and then she came back to get me. I'm losing my mind. I'm old. I've lived nearly 50 years with this woman, and I don't even really remember my old life anymore. I remember my original kids' names, but I don't know what they look like. She tells me we can go back, but if I do, we never have to return to the closet and we can live the life that we have together now. I get up and I walk to the closet. I go inside and I walk back out into the gathering from the beginning, as if I'd never left. My original wife was there. We left and we came home with our kids. We went to bed and I didn't say a word about what had happened. This morning it was surreal driving to work. I felt like I was driving to the wrong place. It took me until 8 a.m. sitting at my desk to accept this reality. I remember so many vivid details about that dream. I don't know what life I'm in. I'm happy that I now have my wife and my life back. I kind of wish that I had the other life's bank account, but I don't know. I feel like I've lived twice. I don't want to go back to the girlfriend, but I do want to know what happened to everyone that I knew for so many years. Like 99% of my life has returned, but the 1% that's different is there. I remember 2 pasts. I finally did tell my wife about the dream, and she listened and gave me a big hug, and she told me that she's glad that I chose her. But did I? I think I did. I felt so much more wiser at work that day, so much more mature, like I had lived before and got to do it all over again, and have much more confidence with my decisions. I can't find any loopholes in my memory other than I don't remember who won the World Series or the Super Bowls in the other life. Nothing stands out that this was just a figment of my imagination. My brother's friend that nobody remembers. I want to preface this by saying that I wasn't a child when this happened. When my younger brother was in elementary school, he had a friend named Jackson. He was a cute little boy with brunette hair, and I remember every day when my brother came home from school, he'd tell us about how he spent recess hanging out with Jackson and another little boy that we'll just call Leroy. I remember my parents saying that the name Jackson was super cute, and when we were looking for a place to move, we thought about moving to Jackson, Mississippi, which reminded everyone about his friend. Fast forward to last year, I brought up his friend Jackson, but nobody remembers him. My mom, my brother, or my dad. They just kept saying that he never had a friend or knew anyone that was named Jackson. But I explained all of the connections that we made with his name, even the town that we were going to be moving to named Jackson, that the fact that my mom liked his name, and my brother being in a friend trio with Jackson and Leroy. But still, nobody remembered him. It drives me crazy to this day because I swear that he was real. My brother, my mom, and my dad all remember Leroy, but not Jackson. The next time I visit my parents, I'll see if I can find my brother's class photos. I don't remember if Jackson was in his class or in another class, and I'm not sure if my brother even has an elementary school yearbook, but I'll update this post when I do. The Passed On. I work at a 55-plus apartment complex with almost 800 apartments. I'm the maintenance manager, so it's not uncommon for me. Anyway, I'll just start at the beginning. I started my day at 6:30 a.m. I walked from my truck to the golf cart corral. On Monday, as I was doing this, coffee in hand, I saw a few of the early birds doing their thing, saying good morning with a nod and a wave. I saw a man in a red t-shirt and blue jeans who looked young for the place, maybe 47-ish, looking kind of aloof or maybe lost, which also isn't uncommon in either instance. Some age better than others, so I still waved and nodded at him. He looked at me like I had done something odd, kind of like shocked and, what the F at the same time. I waved again and said good morning as I passed him, but as I did so, I turned back and he was standing, looking over his shoulder at me. I didn't think anything of it at the time. It was odd, but that's actually common for that demographic to give me the stink eye. Anyway, I went on my way, and I saw the man again this morning just slightly outside of the fire gates for the fire lane, the same as I did before, looking lost and giving me some kind of bewildered look. At about 2:50 p.m., a family member called our office to do a welfare check on her brother. So my boss and I both went. The first thing we noticed was the ticket left on the door from Meals on Wheels for undelivered meals going all the way back to Sunday. When we opened the door, the smell hit us. We went in, and the man and I had seen the passed on. 2 days, he was laying in his bed, well expired. The coroner said that he had been deceased either late Sunday night or early Monday morning. I know this man was as real as anyone else standing there in the fire lane Monday and Tuesday morning, looking at me like I was a whack job. I felt like a nut. Has anyone else ever had this happen? Unexplained experience with cats on my birthday. I don't know if this counts as a glitch in the Matrix, but it was so bizarre, and I can't think of any other subreddit to share this with. A few months ago, on my birthday, I was at a restaurant at the beach having dinner when suddenly a cat entered the restaurant and came to sit next to me, right on the floor. A few moments later, another cat does the same thing, and then another few moments later, a third cat appears, and then finally, a fourth one. Suddenly, I was surrounded by cats while eating dinner, all of them staring up at me. I didn't offer any food to any of them, and there were many other people eating at the restaurant and other people sitting at my table, but for some reason, they were all surrounding my chair, facing me. I'm obsessed with cats, and this actually made my birthday even more special, which was also odd. Key appeared out of nowhere 13 years later. My dad loved to find things that other people were throwing away, mostly furniture or art, stuff like that. He found an old wooden dresser in the trash. He refurbished it, sanded it down, and stained the wood. It was beautiful, and it looked brand new by the time he was done with it. That dresser was in my room for my whole life. When I was in high school, my dad revealed to me that if you pull out the top drawer, there was a hook back there with a skeleton key that was hanging on it. That key would lock the bottom drawer. This blew my mind in itself, that this whole time this dresser, which had been in my room for 10 years, had the key inside of it to lock the drawer with. He didn't want to tell me when I was younger because he didn't want me to lose the key. My senior year of high school, 2008, my parents got divorced and we moved houses. I ended up losing the key to the dresser. I was so upset that I lost that key because my dad waited all those years to tell me about it because he knew that I'd lose it. But I still had the dresser. Anyway, around 2 years ago, so maybe 13 or 14 years since I'd moved, I was at my mom's house helping out with some chores. I had just vacuumed and I was putting the vacuum away, admiring the freshly vacuumed carpet lines. And while I was doing that, I saw something in the carpet. It almost blended in with the design of the oriental rug, but it was shiny. I bend down and I find a skeleton key on the ground. At the time, I thought this was the key to my mom's cabinet in the kitchen, which I found weird because we always just left it in the lock. Well, I walked over to the cabinet, but the key was already in the lock. So I was totally confused where this key even came from or what it went to. Now I had just vacuumed the carpet, and there was no way that it was just laying there without me sucking it up into the vacuum. A week or two after I found the key, I had put it out of my mind and just forgot about all of it. I was laying down for bed, on the brink of falling asleep, when I thought, hey, what if that key goes to my dresser? I instantly jumped out of bed. I ran downstairs, grabbed the key, and went to the dresser to check. And the key worked. It was my key that I hadn't seen in so many years. I was so upset with myself over losing that key, I never told my dad that I lost it. But I immediately called him and I told him that I had lost it all those years ago and now it had just came back to me. Quite literally, it appeared out of nowhere. It still blows my mind to think about. Somebody in the comments asked, what did your dad say when you told him about the key? And the OP replied, to be honest, I don't really remember. I was just relieved that I had found it because I felt guilty, not because my dad would have been mad at me for losing it, but because even though it was just a drawer, he put time and effort into making it nice for me. Yo, weird shit. I'm not even sure if this qualifies for the sub, but here's a quick thing that happened. Short story short, I live in a mobile home village. No crime or anything like that happens here. We have a front door that leads to the wooden deck, a back door that's raised like 3 feet off the ground with no steps or anything leading to it. This back door stays locked 24/7 and never gets used because it has no use. To even get out of it, that would be like a 3-foot fall, like I said. And I have 3 dogs. Anyway, I get up like usual, fed the dogs. The back door is in the kitchen and also right next to the door of the master bedroom. Also, it's directly across from the washer and dryer. To walk into the kitchen from my room, or any room at that, you see the back door. The dogs' bowls are in a cabinet damn near directly across from it as well. My point is, you cannot miss this back door, and again, the knob stays locked. There's no jiggle, it's secured. Back to the story. I take the 2 dogs outside and they go pee and poo, and I let them back in, and then I take the 3rd dog out. After he goes, I bring him inside, and the back door is wide open. I walk over to it, baffled, and my first thought is maybe somehow the bigger dog that was in the house while I was taking the 3rd dog out maybe like pushed on it and got it open or got out. As I'm at the door, sticking my head out and then closing it, the knob is still locked, and the bigger dog comes running to me from the back room, so now all 3 dogs are in the house. And as I said before, I shut the door as the knob was still locked, and I push on it, and it's just as secure as it always is. I checked the whole house 3 times and no one was in there. No jewelry or anything was touched in the master bedroom, and really nothing was out of the ordinary. I might add, if someone would have opened that door somehow while I was outside with the 3rd dog, the 2 little dogs in the house would have been crazy barking. But there was no barking. I have no idea how this back door got opened, and this has never happened before. As I mentioned, I checked the whole house 3 times for anyone hiding and nothing is missing. I even walked to the back and tugged on the door and it's still secure even from the outside. Also, as soon as I tugged on it a couple times, to my prediction, the dog started barking, and the big dog has a really loud big bark too. There's no footprints in the grass or anything. There's cars parked all over, so it's not like my mobile home would be assumed to be empty. It's very, very weird. Also, I'll add that while I was only outside with the 3rd dog for about 5 minutes, when I let the first 2 dogs inside, I didn't see the back door open, and I'm 99% sure that I would have noticed it if it was when I let the first 2 dogs back inside. I know 1000% that it was not open when I came out to feed and take them outside. The whole thing has just weirded me out and creeped me out altogether. A car appeared out of nowhere and then disappeared into thin air. Back in college, I was one of the few freshmen with a car, so friends often asked me to drive. This was especially true when it came to end of year and people needed to fly back home. They'd ask me if I could drive them to the airport. I'd say yes, and they'd usually pay for gas or buy me dinner as thanks. So I'm driving one of these friends to the airport via the freeway when we get to telling some stories. This friend, we'll call him Josh, was a regular comedian, one of those Jim Carrey types who put his whole body into the bit. This will come into play shortly. We're driving along, exchanging stories when it's Josh's turn. He gets into the act, gesturing wildly, when I realize I need to get over into the slow lane so I can take the exit to the airport. I check the rearview mirror and passenger mirror to make sure no one's coming and that the coast is clear, and there's no cars around us for a good quarter mile in either direction. But I guess I was checking the mirrors too obviously because Josh decides to stick his head out the window as a joke. I'm talking everything from the neck up. Josh looks back down the freeway behind us, sees nothing, and angles his head to look at me, while still out the window, and says, "You're good to go." So I start merging over and a car slams on the horn as I almost hit them while merging into the slow lane. I veer back into my original lane, a little shaken from how I almost hit a car that I didn't see, and turn my body to look behind me, where the car I almost hit flashes its lights at me a few times from the slow lane in what I assumed to be anger. I looked back at Josh, who's now rubbing his head from where he hit himself on top of the door, having banged the side of his head when I swerved. "Where did that car come from?" I asked, all confused. I hadn't seen anything in my mirrors, and Josh literally stuck his head out the window and saw nothing. So there were no blind spots that this car could have come from. "I have no idea," Josh said, and I can tell from the confusion on his face that, for once, he wasn't kidding. We looked at each other, uncertain about what had just happened, and again made to change lanes, but this time a lot more cautiously. I very pointedly looked behind me and explicitly asked Josh to stick his head out the window again to check whatever blind spot that I might have missed so that we didn't almost hit a car again. Except there was no car behind us anymore, nor any cars on the road at all for that matter. There were no cars for a quarter mile in any direction. We hadn't passed any exits, merges, or other off-ramps either. Carefully, I creeped us over the line to the slow lane, and this time we made it without incident. Josh stared blankly behind us out the rear window, again seeing nothing, stared at me, and then turned back to stare ahead as we drove the last mile to the airport off-ramp. It really was as if the car had just teleported in, blocked our way, and then teleported back out. I've never seen anything like it since. Respawning customers. A couple months ago, my husband and I were shopping at a big outlet mall. For context, there's many outlets quite apart from each other, and the whole place has a massive parking lot. So, my husband and I were in the car going to the next outlet, which is about a 2-minute car ride from our initial departure point. We're at a stop sign, and we yield for a couple of pedestrians. 2 of them are highly distinguishable. A lady with a big, puffy, fake fur purple jacket. She's holding hands with a massive man that looks like a lumberjack. They're going in another direction than we are, and they walk very slowly. We arrive at the other outlet, park the car near the entrance. We take a shopping cart and we go directly to the section that we need to. That section is at the far end of this new outlet. Suddenly, turning the corner of the aisle, we see the purple jacket lady and that large lumberjack man. I said to my husband, "Hey, look, it's the same couple. It's impossible that they made it here so fast." My husband is taken aback. And for context, he's an engineer who doesn't believe in anything other than science and facts. He tries to justify why they would already be there, or maybe it's just another couple. But we both know that it's the same couple. My husband wants to get out of this place as fast as possible now. Has it ever happened to you that you've seen the same people in a situation that you are absolutely certain that they couldn't have been there? Because this freaked me out.